The night was colder than most in Dry Creek, and the saloon was alive with noise, poker chips clinking, laughter roaring, whiskey spilling. Yet, all eyes turned when Sheriff Cole Maddox did something that made even the roughest cowboys choke on their drinks. He walked across the room, gently took the hand of a blind woman sitting alone, and said, "Ma'am, you'll be safe with me tonight." The laughter that followed was cruel. Men slapped their knees, mocking. What's a sheriff want with a woman who can't even see her way to the door? Someone jeered. Another spat his tobacco, sneering, "Reckon she'll trip over her own boots before sunrise." But Cole didn't flinch. He led her out quietly, ignoring the stares and the whispers, while the woman kept her head bowed, her white cane tapping the wooden floor. Her name was Clara, and she had arrived in Dry Creek only days ago, alone, fragile, and penniless. Some said she'd been abandoned by family, others said her blindness was punishment from God. But Cole saw none of that. He saw a woman who needed kindness in a world that rarely gave it. That same night, miles away in the Grand City, a billionaire woman named Evelyn Hayes returned home from a long trip. The first thing she saw in her marble courtyard was a sight that made her stop in her tracks. Her janitor, humble, poorly dressed, was laughing and splashing in the water tube with his young son. For a moment, Evelyn's instinct was to scold. But then she noticed the boy's pure joy, the way the father, despite his struggles, gave his son every ounce of love he had. And in that instant, Evelyn realized something. All her money, her wealth, her cold mansions, none of it compared to that simple, selfless love. And just like that, the two worlds, Evelyn's and Cole's, were bound by the same truth. Kindness, no matter where it blooms, changes everything. Back in Dry Creek, Clara sat quietly by Cole's fireplace. She couldn't see, but she could feel warmth she hadn't felt in years, not just from the fire, but from safety, from being treated as a human being rather than a burden. "You didn't have to do this," she whispered. Cole knelt beside her. No one deserves to be left in the cold. Days turned into weeks, and the townsfolk never stopped laughing. They called Clara the sheriff's charity case. Men joked that Cole was wasting his strength on a woman who couldn't even fetch water without stumbling. Women whispered that she'd drag him down. But Clara didn't complain. She learned her way around his small ranch house, memorized each corner, each sound. She insisted on cooking, sweeping, even tending to the chickens by counting her steps. Cole never stopped her, he only guided her, proud of her courage. Then came the day everything changed. It was late afternoon when smoke began rising from the far end of town. A fire had broken out in the stables, and the townsfolk panicked. Horses screamed, men shouted, and chaos spread. Buckets of water were passed from hand to hand, but the flames roared higher, threatening to leap onto the saloon and spread across Dry Creek. Cole rushed in, shouting orders, trying to calm the terrified horses trapped inside. But the smoke was thick, and the fire grew fiercer. Just as men began to give up, a soft, steady voice cut through the chaos. It was Clara. "Let me in," she said firmly. The townsfolk stared in disbelief. You'll get yourself killed," someone barked. "She's blind." Another laughed. "What good can she do?" But Clara raised her chin. "I may not see, but I can hear. Horses, they trust voices. Let me try." Before anyone could stop her, she stepped into the choking smoke, her cane tapping the ground. Cole's heart pounded, but he followed close behind. Inside, Clara stood tall, listening to the terrified stamping of hooves. She began to hum softly, a gentle, steady tune that cut through the noise. The horses stilled. Then she whispered words of comfort, walking toward them without fear. Her hands reached the first horse's trembling nose, stroking gently, guiding it toward the exit. One by one, Clara led them out. Her voice never wavered, her courage never cracked. The townsfolk who had mocked her now stood speechless as the blind woman did what no one else could. She saved the very heart of Dry Creek. When the last horse was safe, Clara emerged, soot covering her face, her dress singed, but her head held high. The crowd that once laughed now fell silent. Then, slowly, someone began to clap. Another joined. And soon, the whole town erupted in cheers.
The impossible had happened, done not by sight, but by heart.
Cole looked at Clara with tears in his eyes. You've saved this town, Clara. You've shown them all what I already knew, you're stronger than any of us. Far away, Evelyn Hayes sat on her balcony, her mind replaying the image of her janitor and his son in the water tube. She had always measured life in numbers, contracts, and wealth. But that day, she realized the richest man was not the one with gold in his vaults, but the one whose heart overflowed with love. And in that shared moment across two different worlds, the billionaire watching her janitor, the cowboy watching a blind woman, the truth stood unshakable. Kindness was power. Compassion was courage. And love, whether between a father and son, a sheriff and a blind woman, or strangers in a divided world, was the only thing that could truly change lives. Months later, Dry Creek no longer mocked Clara. They honored her. She walked the streets with dignity, children running to greet her, men tipping their hats. And beside her was Cole, the sheriff who had believed in her when no one else did. One evening, under the golden glow of sunset, Cole whispered, Clara, the night I brought you home, they laughed at me. But now, Clara smiled, her unseeing eyes shining. Now they see what you saw all along. And with that, in the heart of the Wild West, two souls found not only love but a truth as old as time. The world may laugh at kindness, but in the end, kindness always wins.